Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
When I checked the bank accounts, I realized she didn't just leave. She stripped us bare. My name is Derek. I'm 48 years old, and I live in Clarksville, Tennessee. I'd been married to Kelly for 23 years, or at least I thought I was, until the afternoon she walked out. That day I came home early from work. The house was quiet, except for the sound of drawers opening and closing upstairs. I found Kelly in our bedroom, shoving clothes into a duffel bag. Not just clothes, though. I saw her gym shoes, passport, even her old laptop tucked into the side pocket. She didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't even look angry. Just busy. "Where are you going?" I asked. She didn't stop packing. "I just need to breathe," she mumbled, brushing past me like I was a stranger in a hallway. "Is there someone else?" She paused for half a second, enough to sting, then shook her head. "Number, it's not like that." But she wouldn't meet my eyes. I stood there frozen, waiting for a fight, an explanation, something. But all she left behind was her wedding ring on the kitchen counter, and the smell of her perfume in the air, and me, standing in the middle of the kitchen like a ghost. Our son Logan was upstairs. He's 16. Quiet kid, smart, always observant. He hadn't said a word when I came in, just shut his bedroom door like nothing happened. 5 minutes after Kelly walked out, I did the only thing I could think to do. I checked the bank accounts. What I saw nearly knocked the air out of me. Zero. 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 Every account, every card, drained. Checking, savings, our rainy day fund, even Logan's college account. Wiped. She didn't just walk away. She cleaned us out. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Years of saving, budgeting, planning. Gone. I refreshed the page, thinking maybe it was a glitch. But it wasn't. And that's when Logan came downstairs. He was calm. Too calm. He walked over with a slice of apple in one hand, like it was any normal Tuesday. "Don't worry, Dad," he said, sitting across from me. "I already took care of it." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" He didn't elaborate, just leaned back in his chair like he'd just solved a crossword puzzle. I stared at him, trying to process what he meant. Was he in shock? Was he just trying to make me feel better? But no. He looked confident, almost satisfied. And for a second, I didn't know who I was looking at. My son, my quiet, reserved, straight-A student son. But something had shifted. I just didn't know what yet. That night, after Logan went to bed, I stayed downstairs at the kitchen table, the glow from my laptop screen the only light in the room. I logged into everything. Our joint checking, savings, even the account I'd set up years ago for Logan's college. All gone. I stared at the numbers, or lack of them, trying to wrap my head around it. She didn't just take a chunk, she took it all, down to the penny. Even the damn overdraft account was negative from some kind of auto payment. I opened the transaction history. The withdrawals started 4 days ago, one after the other. Transfer. Wire. Transfer. Purchase. Another transfer. All while I was out at Tom's place, helping him build a new deck over the weekend. She waited until I was covered in sawdust and unreachable. I called the bank. Customer service was polite, but unhelpful. The woman on the line walked me through each transaction. "Yes, sir, all transfers were authenticated. Yes, she's an account holder. Yes, she used secure login credentials. No, nothing illegal occurred." It was all hers, all legal. Every cent she stole had been done by the book. I hung up, numb. Around 11, I heard Logan's footsteps on the stairs. He wandered in, barefoot, hoodie half-zipped, holding a peanut butter sandwich like it was just another Tuesday night. He leaned on the counter, chewing slowly. "You good?" he asked, nodding toward my laptop. I closed the lid. Did you know she did this?" He didn't blink. "Yeah, I figured it out a few weeks ago." "You what?" "I saw her logging into the accounts from her iPad. I cross-checked the history on her browser. It didn't match what she told you about paying bills." "That's when I knew something was off." I just stared at him. He took another bite of his sandwich, shrugged like he'd just remembered to take the trash out. "Don't worry, Dad. I handled it." There it was again, that phrase. I handled it. Like he was the adult in the room, and I was the one falling apart. Handled what exactly? He wiped his mouth with the sleeve of his hoodie. "I needed proof before I told you. So I used your phone a couple times while you were in the garage." I blinked. "My phone?" "Yeah. She left some of her logins saved on your Notes app. Not smart. I copied the ones for the banks, PayPal, Venmo, even her gym membership. She used the same password for almost everything. Real rookie move." He said it like we were discussing a school project, like he was just reporting back on a science fair experiment. "You went through all her stuff?" I asked, not even sure how I felt. Stunned, confused, borderline impressed. "She went through ours first," he said, plain and simple. I just followed the trail. I rubbed my temples. "Jesus, Logan!" "I wasn't spying. I was investigating," he said. "There's a difference." I didn't even know what to say to that. My 16-year-old son had basically conducted a one-man sting operation, using my phone, and I hadn't had the slightest clue. He walked over, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, and started to leave. "Oh," he said over his shoulder, "I screenshotted everything. Transfers, logins, even her little email to that Brent guy. She's not exactly subtle." I stood there frozen, one hand still on my laptop, watching him head back upstairs like it was any other night. I'd thought he was just saying all that earlier to make me feel better. I had no idea he'd already been 2 steps ahead, tracking her, documenting her, planning something. I didn't know it yet, but Logan wasn't just reacting. He was preparing for war. The next few days were a blur. I barely slept. I'd sit in the garage with the lights off, just me and the smell of motor oil and dust, scrolling through old texts from Kelly like they were clues to a riddle I'd already lost. I left voicemails I knew she wouldn't return. "Just call me, please." Then I'd delete them before she even had a chance to ignore them. Every time I heard the front door, my heart jumped like maybe she changed her mind. She hadn't. Meanwhile, Logan moved through the house like it was a regular week. He did the dishes without being asked, folded laundry, asked if I wanted chicken or tacos for dinner. No panic, no outbursts. Just this quiet steadiness that didn't match what we were living through. At first, I figured he was still in shock, maybe too young to fully process what had happened. But then something started gnawing at me. One night, I passed by his room to say goodnight. His door was open a crack. The lights were off except for the soft blue glow of his monitor. I expected to hear gaming clicks or maybe a YouTube video playing in the background, but instead, it was just typing, rhythmic, focused, like he was solving a puzzle. I knocked. "Hey, you good?" He minimized the window instantly, swiveling in his chair. "Yeah, just school stuff." His desk was spotless, too spotless. No notebooks, no coffee cups, no clutter, just a single USB drive and a sticky note with numbers on it. Definitely not homework. I didn't push. I just nodded and told him not to stay up too late. But something about that moment stuck with me. The next morning, he left early for a weekend robotics event at school. I was half proud, half grateful for the silence. I figured I'd do something normal, so I went to clean up his room, mostly to feel like I was still his dad, still useful in some small way. That's when I found it. A single sheet of paper slid between the pages of an old calculus book on his shelf. It was an email, printed, folded twice, then flattened again. The header showed Kelly's name. The recipient? Some guy named Brent. The subject line read, "Arizona Logistics, May timeline." My stomach turned. The message was short, but brutal. "Flights locked. I'll handle the apartment details on Monday. Derek shouldn't be an issue if we stay quiet. He's not the type to push back. Logan might notice, but we'll figure that out later." I sat down hard on his bed. She was planning this. Not just an escape, a relocation, a move to Arizona, with Brent, and I was just a footnote, an obstacle to handle. I stared at the paper for a long time, trying to convince myself maybe it was taken out of context. But I knew better. Later that night, I waited until Logan got back and asked him straight up, Did you print this? I held up the email. He didn't flinch. Yeah, he said, setting down his backpack like we were talking about the weather. You've been reading her emails? I had to, he said. I didn't want to bring you anything half-baked. Then he opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. There were folders. Folders. Labeled and dated. Transfers. Emails. Device logins. Brent connections. Wait, what is this? He clicked through one. Screenshots of PayPal transfers, all routed to a second account under Kelly's maiden name. IP addresses. Timestamps. Device IDs. Even one labeled Brent Venmo activity that showed him paying for an Airbnb in Tempe 3 weeks ago. She's not just running away, Logan said calmly. She's rerouting everything to start over. New life, new address, new bank. Brent's been helping her. I tracked their chats too. He's dumber than she is. Never clears his browser. I felt like the walls were closing in. You shouldn't be doing this, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I couldn't unsee the meticulous layout of his evidence. I didn't go looking, he said. Not at first. But once I saw what she was doing, I had to know how deep it went. I stared at my son, this quiet, thoughtful kid, and realized he hadn't just stumbled on her secret. He'd been building a case, and whatever he was planning, it wasn't over, not even close. The next night, I knocked on Logan's door and stepped in without waiting. He was at his desk again, typing something, headphones around his neck. When he saw the look on my face, he didn't even ask what was wrong. I think it's time you show me everything, I said. He didn't argue, just reached under his bed and pulled out a thick blue binder like he'd been waiting for me to ask. The thing was heavy, organized with color-coded tabs, labeled down the side in neat handwriting. Bank data, travel logs, secondary devices, communications, MISC. He set it down on the bed and flipped it open to the first page. Mom's bad at OPSEC, he said, almost like a joke. She uses the same password for everything. Her bank, email, gym account, even her burner Gmail that she uses for Brent. I had to ask, how'd you even get access to all this? He shrugged. I used your phone to verify the recovery codes when I needed to. She'd logged in once to pay a bill from there. I just retraced it. I stared down at the binder. The first section was a list of routing and account numbers, all tied to transfers, several of them made under Kelly's maiden name, funneled through apps and online banks I didn't even recognize. She set up a second checking account through an online bank, Logan explained, flipping pages. Used it to stash money out of sight. I backtracked the deposits. They matched perfectly with the withdrawals from our accounts. She was funneling it slowly at first, like she was testing if you'd notice. He turned to the next tab. Travel records. These are her flight confirmations. She booked 2 one-way tickets to Phoenix under the name K. Roland, her old ID from before she married you. Brent's ticket is under his full name. I leaned over to see. He wasn't bluffing. There were dates, receipts, confirmation codes, even screenshots of Brent's airline loyalty program showing upcoming travel. You said she used a burner Gmail? Yeah. She logged into it once from her gym's Wi-Fi, left the IP trail wide open. I connected it to the iCloud data from her backup phone. Same location, same time frame. I grabbed everything from that cloud. Photos, receipts, messages, even her Uber history. Jesus, Logan, I muttered. You hacked into all this? I documented access points and stuck to accounts that were unsecured or already logged in, he said, sounding way too comfortable using words like access points. I didn't break into anything with encryption. But Brent? He's a joke. His Venmo was public. I tracked payments to Airbnb hosts in Arizona. I even got the listing addresses. They've already stayed at 2 different places near Scottsdale. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, rubbing my face with both hands. What are you planning to do with all this? He looked me dead in the eye. Whatever it takes to make sure she doesn't get away with it. The room went silent for a moment. I stared at my son, really looked at him. His face was calm, not angry, not wild, just focused, steady. I shook my head. This isn't your job, Logan. His jaw tightened, but his voice didn't rise. She made it my job when she stole my future. That line hit me like a punch. He stood up then, went to his desk, and pulled out a small stack of papers. Notes, timelines, highlighted screenshots. At the top of the stack was a file labeled Fiduciary Breach, Minor Dependent Risk Summary. "I'm not trying to get revenge," he said. "I'm making a record. If she wants to run, fine. But she's not walking away clean." I didn't know what to say. There was this voice in the back of my head screaming that none of this was normal, that he was 16, that he should be playing Xbox or sneaking junk food after bedtime. But there was something else too. Pride. A quiet, terrified kind of pride. Because my kid, the one I thought needed protecting, was already 10 steps ahead, trying to protect me. The letter came in the Friday morning mail, plain white envelope, our address handwritten in careful block letters. But what caught my eye was the return, Clarksville Public School District, Ethics Board. It wasn't addressed to me, it was for Logan. He stood at the kitchen counter, already halfway through a bowl of cereal, scrolling on his phone like it was just any other morning. I handed him the envelope. He opened it without much reaction, scanned the page inside, then gave a little nod, like it confirmed something he already knew. "It's about Brent," he said, setting it down beside his spoon. "He's been volunteering with that weekend youth league that runs through the school district. That's over now." I blinked. "Wait, how did they find out?" Logan sipped his orange juice, totally unfazed. "I sent them his license history. He let one lapse last year, reapplied under a different business name. Also submitted fake income to qualify for reduced field rental rates. I attached the billing records and linked them to the tax data. The school gets state grant money for youth athletics. They take that kind of thing seriously." I sat down, hard. "You contacted the school board?" He shrugged like it was nothing. "And the Parks and Recreation Committee, and the volunteer background check agency they contract through, all separate reports, same data." I looked at him across the table. Jesus, Logan. But he wasn't smug. He wasn't even trying to explain himself. He just went back to eating like this was the logical next step in his day. Like some kids make waffles before school. Logan launches ethics investigations. I rubbed my face, trying to get a grip on what was happening. "So what's the plan here?" I asked. "What's the end game? You want to blow up their lives?" He put his spoon down and looked me square in the eye. "Permanent record," he said. That was it, just those 2 words. He leaned back in his chair, calm as ever. "People forget job losses. They bounce back, change cities, rebuild. But public filings, ethics board decisions, fraud documentation, that stuff gets archived. It sticks. If Brent ever tries to get another coaching role or apply for a city-funded grant, he's going to hit a wall." I sat there staring at my kid, my 16-year-old son, like I was seeing him for the first time. "You're not just trying to get even," I said quietly. "Nope," he said. "I'm leaving breadcrumbs for anyone who might need them later." That night, after dinner, I found him in the living room with his laptop open and a USB drive plugged in. He had headphones on, but when I walked in, he looked up. "You want to see?" he asked. He tapped a few keys and rotated the screen toward me. It was a secure cloud drive, password protected, labeled in all caps, "Civil Liability, Open." Inside were folders stacked with organized files, PDFs, screenshots, emails, financial logs, cross-referenced timelines, public records requests. Each folder was named with brutal clarity b.reed.tax/fraud.undeclared.unclared.incomers q2.wired.transferminor.guyardinship.risks. The upload bar at the top was still moving, 92%. "What is this?" I asked, though I already knew. "It's everything," he said. "Everything I've found so far. It's clean, organized, sourced. No personal opinions, just facts. If someone needs it later, an investigator, a DA, even a future victim, it's all here." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. "You're documenting them," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, for the next person they screw over." I had thought deep down that he was just angry, that this was all about vengeance, about punishing Kelly and Brent for what they did. And maybe it started that way. But this wasn't revenge. This was preparation. He was building something permanent. He was making sure no one else would ever have to find out the hard way, the way we did, who they really were. I watched the last file upload. 100%. Complete. Logged. Backed up. Logan didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just clicked share, copied the link, and closed the lid. And I realized then, my son wasn't burning bridges. He was building a case. By the next afternoon, the cracks were starting to show. It started with Kelly's LinkedIn, just gone. Profile photo deleted, work history wiped clean. All it said now was, user not available. I refreshed it twice to be sure. Then I checked the Tennessee Business Registry out of curiosity. Brent's personal training license? Under review. Application status flagged. Probationary notice pending. And then I got the notification I wasn't expecting. A ping from the family court system. An alert on my account login, tied to Logan's name. There it was in plain text. Temporary financial protection order, filed on behalf of minor dependent. Filed by a third-party guardian service. Legal Zoom style, but real. My son had legally flagged his own mother for financial guardianship fraud. I stepped outside and found him in the backyard, sitting on a lawn chair like he was watching a football game. His laptop balanced on his knees, sunlight reflecting off the screen. Calm, focused. The air was warm, but he had a hoodie on, sleeves pushed up, eyes scanning a spreadsheet like he was monitoring troop positions. "You filed something?" I asked, stepping off the porch. "Yeah," he said, not looking up. "The TFP order triggers a financial audit through the state. They'll freeze anything with her name tied to it if the fraud alert holds." I stared at him. "Jesus, Logan. She shouldn't have used your name on those withdrawals, or mine, or signed into my 529 plan without consent." He glanced over at me. "That counts." I sat down in the chair next to him, silent for a second. "She's going to panic." He clicked something, checked a timestamp. "She already is." Then he pulled out his phone and turned the screen to me. One unread message. "Kelly. Please, just call me. We can fix this. You're scaring me." I read it twice. "You haven't answered her?" I asked. "Nope." The screen dimmed. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and went right back to typing. It wasn't just that he was doing all of this. It was the way he was doing it. Calm, calculated, detached. No anger, no smug satisfaction. Just task after task, like a list he was checking off. That night, I passed his room and noticed his door open just a little. I tapped once, then peeked in. He was at his desk again, typing. This time in a Word doc titled Fiduciary Negligence Report, Minor Victim Statement. I stood in the doorway for a second, watching. His screen was filled with bullet points and footnotes, citations from Tennessee law, screenshots of account activity, even a quote from a child welfare website about custodial abuse of financial assets. He was 16, and he was building a legal case against his own mother. "Hey," I said quietly. "You need a break?" He didn't stop typing. "I'm fine. You've been at this for hours." "I know." I stepped inside, sat down on the edge of his bed. "Logan, I mean it. This is a lot. It's not just numbers and forms. It's your mom." He paused then, finally looked at me. "I'm not trying to ruin her life," he said, voice even. "I'm trying to make sure she can't ruin ours." I didn't say anything. "She didn't just take money," he added, eyes fixed on me. "She took the stability. She took my college, our safety net. My whole future. And yours." He leaned back in his chair, shoulders tight. "I don't care if she runs off with Brent and buys yoga mats in Arizona. But she doesn't get to torch what we built and walk away clean." That's when it hit me. He wasn't angry, he was hurt. Deeply. He wasn't lashing out. He was trying to salvage what was left of our lives with whatever tools he could find. Documents, filings, logs. Because that was what she couldn't ignore, or twist, or fake. I stood up, walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to carry all of this alone." He didn't look up. "I know, but someone has to carry it carefully." And in that moment, I stopped worrying about whether he was going too far. Because for the first time I realized he wasn't after punishment. He was building protection. For both of us. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, the kind where the rain just hangs in the air. No thunder, no wind, just steady and miserable. I was halfway through cleaning out the pantry when the doorbell rang. Through the glass, I saw a woman standing there with a sleek black umbrella and a leather portfolio. She wasn't wearing a trench coat or dark sunglasses like in the movies, just a sharp navy suit and a badge clipped to her blouse that said Baker and Ralston, Forensic Audit Division. I opened the door, heart already pounding. "Mr. Patterson?" she asked politely. Then her eyes flicked past me. "Is Logan home?" Before I could respond, Logan was already behind me. "I've been expecting you," he said with a calm that made me feel slightly dizzy. She gave a tight smile. "I'm here on behalf of Ms. Kelly Patterson's legal counsel. This is just a preliminary inquiry. Informal, but on record." Logan nodded once. "Come in." He led her to the living room like he was hosting a guest speaker for debate club. She sat down, notebook ready, and pulled out a small digital recorder. Logan didn't even glance at the binders we'd collected over the last few weeks. Instead, he sat across from her, opened his laptop, and typed in a password I didn't know. On the screen, a single spreadsheet labeled Full Timeline of Events, Verified Sources Only. "This is everything," he said, rotating the screen toward her. "Each transaction, every change of access, documented theft, concealed income, misappropriated assets, dated, indexed, cross-checked." She scrolled slowly, silent. At one point she paused and adjusted her glasses. Then she tapped a cell, looked back at Logan. "You pulled metadata on the Venmo transfers?" "Yes." "And the Airbnb records?" "Cross-referenced with Brent's revoked personal trainer license and his lease applications." She raised her eyebrows but didn't say anything. I sat there quietly, trying to make myself invisible. She barely looked at me. "If your client is considering a countersuit," Logan said evenly, "or making a custody motion, temporary or otherwise, she should be aware of what's admissible. And what's searchable. I've only included items I could verify through public or semi-public access. Nothing encrypted, nothing forced." I didn't know what half of that meant, but she did. I could tell by the way she stopped taking notes and just nodded. A few minutes later, she closed her notebook, thanked Logan, and stood to leave. He walked her to the door. She shook his hand, gave him a polite but distant look, almost like she was impressed, but didn't quite want to say it out loud. Then she was gone. That evening, my phone rang. I was in the kitchen finishing dishes when I saw the caller ID. Kelly. I hadn't heard her voice in weeks. My chest tightened as I picked up. "Derek," she said, already mid-breath, voice cracking. "Please, just listen, okay? I know I screwed up. I know. But it's gotten out of control and I don't know what to do. They're saying I might lose everything and Brent's freaking out and—" I didn't mean for it to go like this, I swear. I didn't say anything. I just wanted a new start. That's all. I didn't think Logan would— He's a kid, Derek. He's just a kid. He doesn't understand what this is doing to me, to us. I looked across the room. Logan was sitting at the table, sipping hot tea like an old man in a diner, calm, watching. I opened my mouth to say something. I don't know what. Maybe nothing useful. But Logan stood up and gently took the phone from my hand. He didn't say anything at first, just held it to his ear and listened while she kept talking. After a while, her voice got quieter. Then Logan said very softly, "I hope you remember this, Mom." There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing. "Because I'll spend the rest of my life making sure no one else goes through what I did." And then he hung up. No yelling, no drama, just that one quiet line, sharper than anything he could have shouted. He handed the phone back to me and walked upstairs. I stood there for a long time, staring at the silent screen. For all the damage Kelly had done, I'd still been hoping for some version of repair. But Logan? He didn't want revenge. He wanted protection, prevention, and that was something deeper, something permanent. The Monday after that call from Kelly, I made a therapy appointment for Logan. He didn't argue, just nodded when I brought it up and said, "Yeah, might be good to talk to someone who isn't collecting metadata." Dr. Briscoe was calm, plain-spoken. No clipboard, no couch cliches. She just asked questions, listened, and let Logan set the pace. After the second session, she pulled me aside. "He's not broken," she said. "He's focused. That focus is protecting him, but it's also how he's coping. Is that healthy?" She gave me a look. "Considering what he's been through, it's remarkable." Back home, Logan was already elbows deep in our finances. He reorganized our bank accounts, moved everything into a new credit union, set up multi-factor authentication, shredded the old joint documents with Kelly's name on them. I caught him on a Zoom call with our mortgage company walking them through the power of attorney updates like he'd been doing it for years. He printed out a budget spreadsheet, labeled each section, and even color-coded which bills were auto-drafted versus manual. I offered to take it over, of course. But every time I said, "You don't have to do this," he just shrugged and said, "I know, but someone has to." That was the thing. He wasn't grieving anymore. He was executing. Like there was a clock ticking somewhere and he couldn't afford to waste time on emotions. One night, I found him sitting in front of his computer again, but this time he wasn't digging through financial records or court dockets. He had a Word document open titled, "Youth Guide to Financial Safety, Draft 1. I leaned against the doorframe. "What's that?" He looked over his shoulder. "I've been thinking about it. What happened to us? It's not just rare, it's invisible. Kids don't even know what to look for. Parents can empty your account, take out loans in your name, mess with your tuition, and nobody tells you how to see it coming. So you're writing a guide?" "Yeah, something real. Not like a school pamphlet that says protect your password. I'm talking examples, red flags, what to check, where to get help, how to document things." He clicked through a few slides he'd already built. If your parent asks for your login but won't show you the statement, flag that. If bank deposits don't match what you were told, take screenshots. If someone says you're overreacting when you ask about money, start writing things down. He wasn't just writing this for himself. He was writing it like someone had needed it years ago and never found it. "This is good," I said, surprised at how polished it already looked. "You thinking of putting it online?" "Eventually. I want to keep it open source, editable, maybe even translate it." He said it like he was talking about homework. No big announcement, no fanfare, just something that had to be done. A few days later, he showed me the full outline. 17 sections, sample screenshots, a page on navigating awkward conversations with adults, a glossary of financial terms, a whole section called "What to Do if You're a Minor and You Discover Fraud." It hit me then. This wasn't just about us anymore. He wasn't trying to get closure. He was building a damn lighthouse. By the end of that week, he had the whole thing uploaded to a private Google Drive, password protected. He emailed it to Dr. Briscoe first and asked for feedback. Then he reached out to one of the counselors at school, quietly, privately, and asked if they had a student resource board for financial literacy. "I don't want my name on it," he said. "Just the information. That's the important part." But I could see it in his eyes. The drive. The purpose. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was reaching back, trying to pull someone else out before they drowned like we did. That night, after he went to bed, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat alone at the kitchen table. I thought about everything he'd lost, everything I'd failed to protect. Then I thought about what he was doing with it now. Logan didn't just pick up the pieces. He was using them to build something solid, something that might actually help someone else survive the kind of betrayal most people never even see coming. It started with a Wix page. Just a plain blue banner with white text, "Shield Up Youth, Financial Protection for Teens and Dependents." No bio, no personal info, just clean, direct language. A link to the downloadable guide, a section for anonymous questions. A line at the bottom that said, "Knowledge is your firewall." That was Logan's doing. Every word, every layout choice. He didn't ask for help. He just did it. By the end of the week, he had a section up for case examples with redacted versions of real scenarios, pulled from our experience, but also a couple others he'd quietly collected through a Reddit thread he'd posted under a throwaway account. A few days later, a local nonprofit that partners with schools reached out to the site. I found out when I opened our shared email account and saw a message with the subject line, Resource Request, District Pilot Program. They wanted to use his guide in their high school financial literacy program. I walked into the living room holding the laptop like it was a winning lottery ticket. Did you see this? Logan didn't even look up from his notebook. Yeah, they emailed me earlier. I gave them access to the PDF and the parent guide. You made a parent guide? Yeah, he said casually. Kids don't always know how to start the conversation. It helps if parents have a way in. I stood there, stunned. You're doing more than just warning people. He finally looked up. I'm trying to shift the default. Kids assume parents always act in their best interest. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it isn't. But no one tells them how to tell the difference. He said it so calmly, it felt like a philosophy lecture. But underneath that cool exterior, I knew he still carried every bruise she left behind. Word spread faster than I expected. The site got shared by 2 high school counselors, then a church youth group, then a family therapist in Kentucky. I watched the analytics climb, slowly but steadily. By the end of the second month, Logan was consulting, quietly, an encrypted email, a pseudonym, L. Patterson, and a simple intake form. He offered free advice, but 5 families insisted on paying him. We set up a secure PayPal. He used the money to buy a refurbished Chromebook for a kid in Texas whose mom had drained her 529 plan. He didn't gloat. He didn't even smile. He just said, "She's gonna need that degree more than a fresh start in Arizona." Then came the webinar. He recorded it in the basement, camera off, voice modulated just enough to mask his age. I watched from the stairs. "This isn't revenge," he said during the Q&A. "It's prevention. Financial abuse doesn't always look like theft. Sometimes it looks like silence, like secrets, like missing statements and excuses. Kids have the right to know where their future stands." I don't know how long I sat there after it ended. I just remember thinking, he's not a kid anymore. He's something else now. But even with all that going on, the clients, the site, the interviews he declined but still got asked for, Logan never got loud about it. He didn't brag. He didn't post. He just kept building. Then one night we were sitting on the back porch. Quiet, warm air, a couple mugs of tea. The cicadas were going hard in the trees. Logan stared up at the sky for a long time. Then he asked me something I wasn't ready for. "Do you think Mom ever loved us?" he said, barely above a whisper. "Or did she just like having a family she could take from?" I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know how to. Part of me wanted to say yes, to give him some kind of comfort, even if it was fake. But another part of me, the one that had watched our accounts drain and listened to her walk out the door without a single apology, couldn't lie to him. So I said the only thing I could. "I think maybe she loved us in the way she knew how, but it wasn't the kind of love that keeps you safe." Logan nodded once, then went back to sipping his tea. He didn't need me to say more. He already knew. 6 months later, Shield Up wasn't just a website anymore. It was a movement. 7 states. That's how far the guide had spread. School districts from Oregon to Florida had downloaded the toolkit. A youth coalition in Ohio printed copies for their after-school programs. Some of the edits Logan made were suggested by actual teens, kids who'd lived through it, or were living through it now. I'd catch him on Zoom late at night, earbuds in, nodding, listening more than talking. He didn't advertise what he was doing. Most of his work happened behind VPNs, alias emails, and burner accounts. The kids called him LP now. Some thought he was a college student. Others assumed he was a lawyer's assistant. None of them knew he was a 16-year-old with a chipped desk and a half-used geometry textbook shoved under his monitor. One day I got an email from a local reporter. She was digging into Kelly's case, tracing court records, flagging the paper trail. She didn't come out and say she suspected Logan was behind it, but I could read between the lines. I showed him the message. "She's sniffing," I said. He barely looked up from his keyboard. They won't find me, he said. I used proxies and a burner wallet for the domain. The Google account's clean. IP history's layered. I just stared at him. You've thought this through. I had to. I nodded, but deep down, I still worried. About the toll, about the pressure, about the kid inside him who never got to sit in the wreckage and just feel it. But that night, I walked past his room and heard his voice. Calm, low, steady, speaking to someone on a video call. A girl, maybe 14, 15, curly hair, red eyes. Logan leaned in close to his mic. You're not crazy, he said. You're not overreacting, and it's not your fault. Adults should protect your future, not cash it out. She sniffled and gave a small nod. He stayed with her until she calmed down. I closed his door quietly and walked away. Later that week, I sat down in our kitchen, just me and a beer, and the evening light coming in through the blinds. I thought about Kelly, about how fast she'd walked out of our lives, about how empty the bank accounts were and how much further we still had to go to get back on solid ground. But Logan wasn't just surviving anymore. He'd built something strong, not just for himself, for others, for the kids who'd never see it coming. She left us broken. He turned it into something bulletproof. She took our money, he took everything else.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.